Hi there, and welcome back to The Fuse Show. I'm David Tran. I'm a co-founder of Xfusion.io and also a co-host of The Fuse Show. Today, I'm excited to be joined by my guest, Tom Mucklow. He's a co-founder of Superco and an angel investor in the e-commerce space and the technology that facilitates it. Tom has a broad background in sales, partnerships, and film production. He's currently building Superco, a Shopify design and development agency with purpose-built ticket management to provide agency service at scale. Thanks for joining us on the show, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me, David. Appreciate it.
So I've noticed you've done a rather wide range of things for someone who's relatively young. Could you walk me through how all the different opportunities presented themselves to you?
Sure. So my degree was in Chinese, of all things, but I ended up kind of focusing majorly on like Chinese film and literature my final year. I've always been a big fan of film, so that kind of like worked quite nicely, worked hand in hand. And you know how everyone is kind of towards the end of college, like I'd done a few internships, nothing jumped out at me. I mean, I didn't want to be an investment banker, didn't really want to work in real estate. And I just thought, like, I'm in London, like film industry, the UK film industry is kind of fun. I mean, it's impoverished. It's like it's like the poor cousin to like Hollywood. But it's pretty thriving. There's a lot going on, like particularly there's a ton of like Hollywood features that come over here and get shot because the tax credit situation is pretty favorable. But I was basically, I just thought, well, I mean, I have a big passion in film. Let's try and jump in there and try and make it work. So I just screwed around for like 6 months trying to find a job in a film production company by doing literally everything I could. A lot of hustle, a lot of like running around like central London, delivering scripts at actors' houses and like packages, shipping like, they're called DCPs, basically like hard drives with films on to various film festivals, like all sorts of weird bits and pieces and production stuff until I finally kind of got in with a film production company who wanted me as their assistant. So I did that for a few years, was a lot of fun, did a ton of festivals, worked on a couple of really interesting films, a couple got bought by Netflix, fairly niche, but like decent films, decent projects. My bosses were wicked, kind of mad, but it was a really fun, like early 20s experience. But ultimately, like as I mentioned at the beginning, the UK film industry doesn't pay very well. So I was kind of like enjoying work, but also struggling to make rent. And I mean, I always wanted to live in America. I basically just managed to get a job as like the first employee. It's a company I worked at before. So they knew me. They basically had a US office, a lot of sales guys, no one really managing them. So they closed it down and just decided to like redo it under more of like a partnership type model. So, I mean, it's e-commerce SaaS. So basically selling into pretty much any like e-commerce business. It was a company that provided like a tool to help improve flow through the checkout. So it allows you to auto-fill your address. And we sold it to like likes of Nike and Ralph Lauren and eBay, but I was the first one out there and basically had a remit to build a partner program. So it's basically dealing with all e-commerce agencies of all sizes, from like tiny little like 1 or 2 man bands through to like multinational board groups and then like PFS webs, like quite large players in the space. So moved into that and then just kind of got the bug for, I mean, both living in America, doing sales, making money, and like e-commerce in general. So I did that for about 3.
Was that your first foray into e-commerce?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like I'd kind of been around. I had worked in this company before. I'd been around it for a while, but hadn't really ever thought about like properly working in there, working in that world. But it's kind of like not that like entirely like driven by money, but I needed a job that was like had prospects and like just kind of it was hard to see myself in the future there. Whereas e-commerce was like fun. My job was very like people based. Like I had to go out to take people for dinner and lunch and like close deals through that, which kind of suited me quite nicely. Company expense account was significant. It was fun. It worked out really nicely, and I just love the industry. I love the people. I love the progress. I love the kind of the way it's like a mismatch of just like it's like a web of like interconnecting technologies and people constantly innovating and building new things, and at the same time on the brand side, that people are coming out with wicked new brands, coming out with innovative, cool new products. So it was just fantastic to be like at that intersection. So yeah, I've been doing that for a few years, and then kind of decided to go brand side. Launched a little like D2C brand myself, called Raw Mornings, which is I had grand ambitions of selling breakfast products into offices. This was like 2019. I was going to launch this business, and then like obviously early 2020 happened, and suddenly but office like B2B selling into offices wasn't very viable. So I pivoted to doing like morning wellness. I was going to start doing like breakfast to people at home, but basically launched with some morning focused supplements, and then just really quickly realized that I was kind of adrift, like trying to find like good quality design and development on Shopify, but without like agency retainer price tags, and without the kind of the unreliability that some freelancers have. Like I worked with a guy and suddenly just disappeared for 2 months. So chatting with a friend of mine in the UK, he said like, why don't we team up? And so yeah, I ended up just kind of I've still got my Shopify store going, but I don't spend a huge amount of time on it. I've just got a PA mainly running it, and I do all my time back in doing like partnerships and B2B like sales, basically running revenue. So me and my business partners, and yeah, I do like a ton of just like outbound and networking, and we've got a lot of clients, just trying to keep them happy. It's fun, and we built like a platform like to help service clients at scale. So we really struggled to find something in the market. So that's something we're building ourselves, and we may spin out as a product itself in the future.
Do you still remember your Chinese?
God, like little bits and pieces. If you throw me into a Chinese restaurant, I can order Chinese food. But I would say it's the hardest things I ever learned, and one of the easiest things I've ever forgotten. I'm learning Polish though now, which is like even. Yeah.
Is that for fun? Is it for business?
No, my partner's Polish, so I'm learning Polish so I can speak to his mom.
Okay.
But yeah, it's even harder than Chinese, to be honest.
So what makes you so bullish on e-commerce?
I'm bullish on e-commerce because like, I think we're early in the early days. I mean, you see that graph last year of just like e-commerce adoption post like lockdowns across the world. Like it just shot up like from like 5 or 10% adoption to like 20% adoption. There's so much going on in the space, so many ways that people are like buying products now. Like obviously there's like the kind of the Amazon bear moth out there, but people are throwing up Shopify stores like left, right, and center, and not just like your usual like suspects, like the big brands. You're seeing like creators just launching stores, selling merch. You're seeing like little old ladies at home who maybe had like an Etsy store, now being like, I'm making these wonderful wicker baskets. Like, why don't I branch out and create my own brand? Like, it's just like it's a really like leveling period. Like people, there's never been a better time to get into it. You can literally start a store for, like $25, I think, or whatever the base price of Shopify is. You don't need any of the MarTech apps. You can just throw something up, kind of build a lot of it yourself. Like I know people who do like 95% of the work. You can do the whole thing with the theme. So it's like it's just amazing what people can. It allows people to just create income for themselves, whether it replaces a job or whether it is in conjunction with the job. But allows people to both kind of create something themselves that they enjoy doing, and also provides like some degree of like income, like either passive or active, depending on how involved they are, or whether it's kind of digital or physical products. But it's really leveling, and it's really allowing people to kind of pull themselves out. Like we're constantly having like amazing conversations we work a lot in the food and bev space. So you typically find those founders are way more like, a lot of them never really set out to do it, which is quite nice. They all just kind of fell into it through being really passionate about like hot sauce or like whatever it is. They just kind of thought I could make something a bit better than this myself at home, and they did that. And like 3 years down the line, I've got a fully functioning brand turning over like £1 million or whatever. And it's just quite like rewarding to see and to like help and to be part of these people's journeys. So yeah, I'm an optimist by nature. So yeah, I find it very rewarding.
Did you dive into this food and beverage space intentionally, or did you happen to converge in that over time just due to like meeting people and those people met you, introduce you to other people who were in the same space?
It was like totally unintentional.
Okay.
I mean, I was kind of loosely trying to create food, but I was creating food and beverage brand myself.
Yeah.
It's always been quite close to my heart. We never really had like, when we launched the business, that wasn't really like a focus. I mean, we basically would service anyone. More of our USP at that time was this kind of ticket management platform we built. But that's definitely changing now. We just ended up picking up a load of food and bev clients for various reasons, and we were featured on like a food and bev podcast once through like a guy who recommended us. We ended up getting like 10 clients through that. But we've ended up just kind of, it's one of these like chicken and egg kind of things, I guess. Like we were kind of like focusing more on like subscription type, retention type e-commerce. Like how do you kind of keep your best clients? And that lends itself very nicely to like food and bev, particularly because it's very consumable. Like if you buy hot sauce online from a company you really like it, chances are you're going to buy another one.
Buy it again. Right.
To the point where like you want to deliver it every 6 months. So that's kind of how we've moved in, and we're just kind of we're slightly pivoting again to to having very much bring those kind of together and just having a very like retention subscription focused agency with like most of our clients being selling consumables. So like probably mainly food and bev, but also things like cosmetics or candles or things like that. So yeah, that's where we're moving the agency towards, which is really fun. It's nice to have a focus.
So for Superco, when you're trying to like, how'd you first get started in terms of finding clients?
Honestly, well, compared to like setting up a Shopify store myself and like paying Facebook quite a huge whack to get customers, it's actually really nice moving back to B2B where you just have to like reach out to people online. Be a nice guy and like trying to help people. So a lot of business groups, they've been really helpful. So I don't know if you use like being on Trends by The Hustle, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Trends. Yeah.
So that was a fairly lucrative early source of customers for us. I've actually just closed another customer from there this week. I mean, yeah, it's whatever I spend a year, like $300 or something on it is, and my ROI is pretty insane. So that's been amazing. We do increasingly more like newsletter sponsorships. So not like I don't think they even take sponsorship Trends, but sponsoring kind of industry type things. Get a few clients in there. I'd mentioned my kind of friend who has his own like e-com tech business called Blueprint, which I'd highly recommend for anyone listening in that space. It's like SMS, like customer retention, like how it works very closely with what we do. But it's like pause and restart orders on subscription through SMS. But he gave it out once, and we ended up getting a lot of clients with that. So that's another like e-commerce like influencer kind of angle we're going after. So that's kind of that's part of my like what I did. I spent most of my time in New York doing was like partnerships. So yeah, e-commerce influencer and other agencies with adjacent skill sets that we don't cover ourselves. And it's like a kind of they feed us clients, we feed them clients, less for like commission, or just like, hey, we've got a great client, needs whatever it is, email marketing. We don't really do it, but our adjacent agency does it. And so it's partnerships really. So yeah, that's been pretty good actually, and increasingly more so as we kind of build out the agency.
In a given week, how many hours would you say you spend, or what percentage of your time would you say you spend towards finding new clients, either building channel partners, reaching out to people directly, following up with people, etc.?
probably like I spend most of my afternoons doing like either some outbound, whether it's like most of my afternoons each week are that. So it's like first touches, like introduction calls, like hammering out details on deals, whatever it is. Either calls or emails. But I mean, most of my job is like probably half is like searching for new clients, or maybe like a third searching for new clients. We've just brought on a guy to help with like outbound, doing some like meeting setting for me. But I'm often in like back-to-back meetings all afternoon. So yeah, a lot of talking, but it's fun.
Do you find the talking through Zoom emotionally exhausting, or do you feel like it's just as equivalent to like in-person relationships for you?
I'm totally fine with it.
Okay, I think there's a certain skill to be that way.
Yeah, I do. What I really want to do, this is going to be a little bit of a tangent here. Sorry, I saw some guy with like the sickest like office Zoom setup, and he basically just like got some like cinema quality like. He's got a couple of these like 8 really high quality HD cameras. I can't remember which ones he had set up around his room. He had like a couple of like microphones. And he just set it up so that wherever he could be like walking around, he had like a whiteboard, like the camera would just like follow him. And I think it was in Austin somewhere. It was like some quite nice tower block in Austin, like 2 walls with like windows. And it was just like a cool office, but he could literally like walk around the office on a Zoom call, constantly having like a camera in his face and like constantly being picked up. And then also, he could just kind of do like a few little other bits and pieces, like maybe like hit a golfing ball or whatever into the corner, but he was like still like right in the Zoom. It was cool. It was really cool. So yeah, that's kind of grand.
That is cool.
My South London spare bedroom office isn't quite there yet, but give me a few years.
Work in progress.
Work in progress, yeah. I mean, I've upgraded to some sort of like light thing, like you can't really see it, but yeah, which I think is better because it kind of keeps me awake. I've got beautiful Brixton Road outside my window. It's nice. But yeah, Zoom setup I think is important.
So I noticed that you also mentioned that you also invest in e-commerce companies.
Yeah.
Is that also related to your journey in reaching out to companies and then the clients that you work for? Is that how you find these people?
Yeah, honestly, it's all becoming it's all kind of becoming part of this part of the same thing. So yeah, on regularly I have we've got a couple of clients actually who are either like I'm on their cap table, or I had an intro call, someone introduced me or whatever, and just had a chat. It's becoming I don't want it to be like too disingenuous, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to be like, oh, I'm an angel investor, just do that just so I can get deals. But sometimes that does just happen kind of organically. But yeah, typically, like, I think I'm investing less in actual brands and more in like e-commerce tech, like.
I see.
I bought a little Shopify app earlier this year. I'm loosely looking. I don't think it's quite yet. I don't think we're quite ready. But me and my business partner are looking at like raising a small fund with some debt and buying up Shopify apps. And basically like rolling up together, stripping out kind of unnecessary stuff in there, and like improving the marketing, improving the product, and like cross-selling and upselling everything to our clients and to other clients. But yeah, kind of as much as I enjoy my agency job, I do quite want to get to a point in a year or two where our business is probably like 80% plus recurring revenue. Just because it's so much easier.
Products are definitely the key to getting there.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like software products. I remember when Microsoft first introduced their subscription model for their Office products, and everyone's like freaking out and like their minds were blown. And now everything's in a monthly or annual subscription. Almost everything.
Yeah. It's just, not that I'm going to sell anytime soon, but it's just like gives me just that much bigger multiple when I do, and it's just you know what you're getting in each month. Like with agency, sometimes it's great, sometimes like just grabbing around trying to get more work in, and you've just got to like manage people like internally, externally. I mean, you obviously have that with kind of software as well, but it's a lot more hands off. Once someone's signed up, happy with the product, it's kind of a bit sticky. Whereas with like agency stuff, we have to keep getting in touch with them each month, being like, "Hey,
right,
let's get some work done." So yeah, that's kind of the longer term plan. So yeah, that kind of falls back into like the investing bucket, but less like angel, more like micro private equity type stuff. So yeah, it all feeds off each other in a weird way. But yeah, that's kind of the direction we're looking to go.
Earlier, you were mentioning how money isn't your North Star. It's not something that like one of your like deep motivators. What would you say is the core thing that motivates you to do all these things? It's definitely not easy to like handle so many clients, manage a e-commerce brand, be available and take the time to research and invest, companies to invest in, etc.
I just love the game. As lame as that sounds. Yeah, money. I mean, like obviously I want to make money, but it's not my like be all and end all. Like I'm doing pretty well. Like I don't need like a shitload of money. I don't have a particularly extravagant lifestyle. I travel a lot, but I don't like stay in like fancy hotels drinking champagne every day. Like I just travel because I quite like being in different cities, and I'm normally like working most of the time. I'm over there. So yeah, just like I enjoy the network. Like I just love like meeting people and talking to people. Like that's probably like my biggest driver is it's constantly like expanding my network, seeing opportunities like deals. Like I just like that. Like we're trying to loosely put together this funding right now, and I've kind of started just doing like reach out to like family offices and things, which is just not something I've ever done before. And I've speak at the beginning of this call about how I didn't want to go into investment banking. I've seemed to have turned like full circle. Maybe I should have done a bit of IB before like joining all of this. But yeah, it's fun. I just relish new challenges and new experiences and meeting new. That's kind of the driver really for me.
How big is your team right now?
We are 12 full-time people split like around the world, 2 in the US and about half in Europe, UK, mainly UK, and then the rest in like Philippines. We've got 4 people in the Philippines, and then we work with like a few other kind of agencies as well when we need extra capacity.
And how'd you find them?
Mainly through there's a website in the UK called Work and Startups, and another one we've used a couple of times is called Dynamite Jobs. Have you ever used that? Dynamite Circle, pretty good group actually. I quite like their content and like what they're trying to do. And then all the Filipinos actually we hired through. There's quite a good like agency we found. I was like a recruitment firm actually called Support Shepherd. They found us one great guy. We paid like through the roof. Well, not through the roof. You paid like typical recruiter fees for that. And then through him, we've just found like all the others. So yeah, we don't pay those recruiter fees again. But the first guy they hired, like fantastic. He's been amazing.
Referrals are super strong. I love finding great staff, and it's always, I feel like almost always they know someone who, or at least they know someone who knows someone who's looking for a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's so much easier for like if someone you like internally likes someone, then typically they're probably going to be, if they're putting their neck on the line to try and bring in like a mate or an ex-colleague or someone, they both like the person and trust that they're going to do good work. And if we can get out paying like ludicrous like headhunting fees for it and just give them like a nice little bonus or whatever, like 90 days in, then I'm all for that. Like they're happy, you're happy, the new colleagues happy. Like it's kind of a win-win-win.
So now that your team is growing, and I believe that you're across multiple countries, like what are some of the things you built into your company culture to keep everyone united and unified?
I mean, one of the single biggest, I mean, it's not so much like a culture, I guess it is kind of culture, but it's less like, hey, team effort. It's more like, I suppose it is actually, I take that back. So we were on, when we first started this, my business partner was, I mean, he always dealt with developers and team members through Skype. And I don't know if you've ever used Skype for business.
I've used Skype. I've used MSN Messenger and AIM as well.
Oh yeah,
Super legacy
back in the
tools.
day, yeah, that was like the only option. But Skype for Business is trash, and it's a nightmare trying to like manage clients and people through this like really old protocol. So moving over to Slack has honestly like 10x star. It's 10x star like productivity. I know exactly what's going on in every client we have. Like we're connected. We're building an integration into our own like proprietary ticket management system I mentioned earlier. So yeah, it's kind of the cornerstone of our whole business. Like without it, no one would know what the hell's going on. We don't really do any internal emails at all. So yeah, Slack. Yeah, and I mean we're kind of still quite young. Don't do a huge amount of like culture-y type things, but I do appreciate the like Slack allows things to be quite fun. You can throw in GIFs and like I got GIFs of like me in there and like emojis and things. I mean, without it being too kind of like childish and puerile, like it does like allow an element of like fun to creep into work, which is I think is hugely important. And they've got proper emojis. Even like Skype didn't even have proper emojis. Those stupid Microsoft emojis. So yeah.
Do you still have any clients on Skype for Business?
No, as soon
Okay.
got very weird. I mean, it's one of those things you just like, as soon as you move, you got to move everything like straight away. Otherwise, it just makes everything way more complex. No, like I'd been pushing for it for ages, and my business partner was like pretty sold on Skype, and then I woke up one day and he'd like change his mind, and within 2 months, like, oh, it's like. So, yeah.
What are some of the things you've learned in the past, like call it like 1-2 years, that you wish you knew 5 years ago?
I wish I'd been more like aware. I was thinking about this morning. Aware of like when I was in the film industry, I mean, I loved it, and even probably 2 years into my time in New York, I was like I read a lot of news, like film industry news, or like in New York, I read a lot of like kind of the tech news. Never really acted on it. And didn't act. I suppose it's less like a knowledge piece, it's more of like a skill set, is to be like knowing something's like half the battle. If you can like act on it, that's the value add. So I'm definitely become like, I guess, more cognizant of like trends and acting on them. Particularly like in this kind of world now, and like, I mean, I think it's like a crazy hype cycle, all the NFTs and things, but like I've kind of been like very like vigilant on it for like months, and yeah, I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of better at keeping up date with like what's going on, and much better acting on things where potentially make money, or whatever the kind of the action is. I'm much better at taking that action. I don't know.
So,
I think it's more of like just more general. When I talk about awareness, I think it's more like a self-awareness, like of myself and my potential. Like it's not me running around like a maniac in the 20s, like partying the whole time. Still do that a bit, of course, but I'm very aware that shit, I'm now like early 30s. Like I need to start creating some like long-term wealth, some passive wealth, something that like I can just like, if I needed to, I could pick up my bags and quit everything tomorrow and go live in India and be totally happy for the rest of my life if I wanted to. But like just kind of building that kind of like stability around me is something I'd not really considered before, like maybe a few years ago. And now I'm like, I guess it was like quitting my job and jumping in, and like it suddenly becomes quite real. So yeah, that's one thing I'm like kind of wish I'd done earlier. Kind of maybe just set up a little business in my early 20s, I'd have probably like would have had that mindset, but that mindset shift has been like immensely important for me.
So when did you start thinking about the idea of passive wealth?
I mean, years ago, but I've not really like, I mean, I've always been like quite into the markets. I mean, I remember clearly as like an early teen, just like reading the business section of the Times, the London Times newspaper. And I'd always invested. Like I've always like invested in the stock market. So I think I'd always been like I'd always been on it. I mean, I read a book. I can't remember what it's called. Very famous, like 88s, and then getting to I can't remember. It's one of these like 1980s like fund managers. Recommended from my dad when I was like 15. So I've always been like aware of like the stock markets, but it's only like probably in the last few years that I've suddenly become aware of like angel investments and like crypto and like just like alternative investments, like even like bonds. Like, not that I particularly like invest in bonds, like I own bonds, but I don't really like get excited about them. But I feel like I'm getting more like holistic. In the last few years, I had like more of a holistic view on like investments and like the benefits of them. And in regards to like passive income, like my portfolio is fairly skewed towards like high growth tech stocks. So it's not like I'm earning like tons and tons in like dividends each year, but that will probably change. I imagine they'll slow down and move to probably paying out dividend. But at the moment, like I don't need like a huge amount of passive income, but I'm just setting myself up for in the future to have a ton of passive income.
So let's say we fast forward, like call it a few years, however many years you want to say, and you have $1 bajillion in like passive income. Like how differently would you live your life?
I mean, probably not vastly different. I'd have a few houses for sure. But like I'm not like super extravagant. I mean, I'd have my house in London. I'd probably have a nice boat hole in like southern Europe somewhere, and maybe like a ski place somewhere, possibly in the States, maybe. I don't know. But no, like I feel like my life is like I'm traveling constantly. Got a lot of friends around the world. I mean, I'd probably do more of that, but it's not, and maybe stay in slightly nicer places. I'd definitely do more like investments, like angel investments. I'd throw it around a bit, but less in like a spending all on me, more on like how can I turn this $1 bajillion in passive income into like $3 bajillion.
Okay.
Like
I have
retire, I'd get bored.
What's up?
I wouldn't retire, I'd get bored.
Yeah. I've noticed that amongst a lot of entrepreneurs. I think a lot of entrepreneurs I've talked to, both through this show and outside, all of them have no intent of retiring and want to work till their brain physically or their body physically can no longer work.
Yeah. I guess it's a buzz. It's a thrill. I love it. Like I love nothing more than like someone saying yes to a deal and getting that signature, getting that money in, and getting that kind of project started and delivering on it and seeing that like happy face when it's completed. I think it's fun. And like, yeah, agency isn't for me forever, but like this kind of world is definitely for me for like the tech space, e-commerce space, that space, maybe probably a bit more kind of crypto space going forward. That's fun. I love it. Like just constantly meeting people and having no fixed abode, like being able to like jet off for a week or go to Poland for 2 weeks or whatever it is and move to Barcelona is amazing. It's such a privilege to be able to like live in this time where I don't have to be in some shitty fucking office with like horrible like false ceilings and some boss I hate and like I'm like I really enjoyed my previous job, but I couldn't be more happy to like not have to deal with that.
Something I've noticed to be common among entrepreneurs, and maybe this applies to you, is just how much they enjoy learning from people, from books, from blogs, from newsletters, whatever. They just love the constant drive to pushing themselves to the slightly next level, even if on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm a pretty voracious. I used to be much more of a voracious reader of books. That's probably taken a little bit of a backseat now to me. I just read a lot of newsletters and a ton of Twitter, but quite curated Twitter. I'm not much of a tweeter, but I read a lot of Twitter. So yeah, I'm just kind of following like rabbit holes of interest, like on that, following a link and clicking where that ends up, and just I read a lot of that kind of content. I should probably.
Do you have certain Do you have favorite people that you follow on Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, I follow a lot of like VCs, but like the more interesting ones. I mean, one person I've loved to watch the rise of over the last year is Packy McCormack. Have you come across him?
Can't say I have.
I didn't even know what he was doing before, but he started a newsletter called Not Boring, which if you don't read it. It's really fucking good. I mean, honestly, I was like certain. He talks like loosely about, broadly about like tech space, futurism, crypto, but in a really engaging, like really quite in-depth way. I mean, some of his newsletters are like 10,000 words. Like they're like
shoot
long, but they're always fun. Like he like puts in like fun little gifs and like animations and things and like graphs that he's drawn like on an iPad with a pen, like not like particularly serious, but he brings a lot of fun into it. And the best part is like I've just been like, going back to my kind of awareness, kind of read something and thought, oh, that sounds really logical. I'm going to put some money into that. I mean, genuinely, I've had like, the last one I did was, I don't know if you in the crypto space much or not really.
I go in and out of the crypto space. At one point, almost all of my liquid net worth was in some form of crypto of some kind, although heavily in stablecoin.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I'm increasingly dabbling more and more, but I just took a bit of a punt. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of money. Definitely something I could have lost. But in AXS, which is this like Axis Infinity game, which is like taking over like the Far East, and people like you play to earn. You earn money by playing the game, which is kind of an insane concept, which I love. But my investment in that is just like I bought it like end of July, and it's up like, or maybe it's like mid-July. It's up like 7, 8, 9x or something. It's insane.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, like long story short, he's amazing. He's really funny, and makes like really quite complex topics really quite digestible. So I'd highly recommend people signing up.
Those are my favorite people to read. Yeah. Like I think there's just incredible amounts of complex topics out there that a lot of people are just too intimidated to approach just because they have the curiosity, but the barrier to entry is just really high.
Yeah.
And I think crypto is definitely one of them.
Oh, 100%.
And investing as a whole, yeah.
I think investing, like crypto is some of it is such a black book of like, I think the whole, like a lot of this NFT craze at the moment, this is like a ton of it is just so influencer led. It's such like, what's the phrase, like, I mean, it's kind of like musical chairs, like the last one standing is going to get absolutely
burned heavily.
Yeah. I mean, and people just like spending. I mean, like I totally get the underlying like tech benefits going forward with like smart contracts and totally see a future like NFTs in like whatever kind of context they're being used, whether it's like tickets for sports matches or musician or like music concerts.
Right.
Yeah, definitely like the kind of the artwork element to it, but I think at the moment spending $1.3 million on a JPEG of a
piece of rock,
kind of insane.
Yeah.
Like,
mind boggles me.
Yeah, I know. And like I think people like it's all in this like kind of Twitter sphere where people think that like, oh, this is the be all and end all and everyone cares about this. It's like no one can, like outside of like the 100,000 people floating around in this section of the internet, no one gives a shit. And like people with like there's a ton of other people with real money who would never ever drop that kind of money on that. So
right,
yeah, I think like there's a lot of it. I think 99% of the current class of NFTs are probably going to go to zero.
I agree. Yeah.
Definitely a few which will keep on. Like they're just well known. I mean, like the CryptoPunks, maybe like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, whatever. But I don't know. I think unless you really like the artwork, don't buy it.
So my thing with the artwork is the fact that like you can still enjoy the artwork as a non-owner.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me because like in physical art, you buy the art, makes sense because you are the sole owner. You put it in your house, your museum, your office, whatever, and you get to enjoy it, and very few others get to enjoy it. Which some people care about. I don't personally care about that, but for digital art, like you literally see the piece of art that everyone else has spent money on. And it's the same for you versus everyone else, whether you own it or not.
Yeah.
But oh well, someone out there values it at some level. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, people like to collect shit. I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I collect things, but like, I'm kind of struggling to see how like any of these could really hold their value long term.
Mm.
I mean, I guess if it's like the first one of their kind, like, then for sure. But I mean, there's only going to be more and more and more of this like kind of pixelated, kind of punky, like cyberpunky junk that's like chucked out. Like, I don't think there's like a vast market for that. And like, what people, what are they going to do? They keep them just like, they buy them, put them in their Rainbow wallet, and what? Like maybe change their Twitter like profile photo once a month, or it's like, yeah, the utility is not really there. I don't really, yeah. So you said, like, you buy a nice piece of art, you put it on the wall, people come over for dinner, say, great, love that photo you have of your dining table, but I don't know, it's all a bit like everyone's slapping each other's backs at the moment, being like, oh great, you got I think you meet Nate or whatever, but I don't know, we'll see.
So I have one last question for you.
Sure.
So what advice would you give to founders or soon-to-be founders that are watching this episode?
Jump today.
Jump today.
Yeah.
I like it.
Don't kick the can down the road. Perfect is the enemy of done. Like, just get out, throw something out there and just launch and just see what happens. My biggest regret is not doing this like 5 years before.
Well, thanks for your time, Tom. This has been a fun time. I just want to give you an opportunity for anyone in our audience who wants to follow you along your journey and either check out you or your company. Where should they go?
So I am on Twitter, Tom Mucklow. I think I'm at Tom from Aurora. I don't use it a huge amount, but like, send me an email if anyone wants to get in touch. tm@superco.io. It's probably the best place to get in contact with me, or find me on LinkedIn or whatever. There's not too many Tom Mucklows, so yeah, you should find me pretty quickly.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again for your time, Tom.
Thanks, David.